The Easy Guide to Tie Quilting with Elaine Lockett. This video is meant to be used with printed materials available for free on our website, americanknitter.com. See the link in the description below. Cut your flannel, batting, and fabric to your desired size. You can refer to the free plans if needed. Let's get started.
So these have been cut, and I pin then afterwards. When I pin, because we're going to turn this like a pillowcase, I make pins so that I have an opening, that I will leave an opening in the fabric after I'm sewing. So I've got batting, backing, and the top. You put the backing or the top, it makes no difference which one you want to put first, but right sides go together. If you don't do it that way, you'll have a mess. Right, right. And I have pinned along the sides, and I have pinned one place where I want an opening. And I do that depending on the size of the quilt and the loft of the batting. The heavier the batting, the larger this opening needs to be for you to turn it like a pillowcase. And I put my pins in so that they will guide me for the width that I want on my seams. So now we're ready to sew. Okay, now this is where I have marked for my opening, so I'm going to be sure that I don't sew that together, and I'm going to sew clear around the entire perimeter, because then we're going to turn it. Okay, so we're going to sew, and because I've got these pins to guide the width of my seam, I will pull those pins that are running horizontal out as I go. If you want to make a half round circle at your corners, you may. I make mine square. Okay, so that I go clear around, and that's how we're going to finish it. And when we come here, I'm going to have a straight line, so I don't have to have pins going the other direction. Now we have sewn clear around the perimeter, and now we're going to turn this, because this is going to be just like a pillow. Right sides are inside, so we're going to turn it just like a pillowcase. And we pull these through. In order to get the corners, I use a blunt nose scissor and stick it in the corner as I turn. Clear around the quilt to pull it clear through. This is the part that makes me a little nervous, because it sometimes bunches up. And I need to get that clear through, just like that. If you pull it, you'll get it clear through. Okay. Now we've poked our corners out, we've turned it, and we've got them all in. I'm going to shake the quilt all the way around so that it will help you get it in the shape that you want it. And because I have my table right here, I pull it to help crease that and to pull out the seam. And I do that all the way around. Just show it all around. And I even do it, now this is the opening where we turned it through. So if we crease it, you're going to be able to pin it together so that you're going to make your next seam. Because when you pin these, you're going to put these two pieces sides together, and see, because I bent that over and I also pulled it on the table, it's going to be pretty much set for when you need to pin it together and do your outside stitching. So I'm going to pin these together, and you can see that the pin goes clear through, and I will pin this on the entire quilt like this, so that, and I'll do it all the way around, because my next stitching is going to be right next to the fold, right here. I make two stitchings when I do this. I make the stitching right on the edge, and then I make a stitching that's about an inch in. We will switch this quilt and get one that is totally pinned, and then I will show you how I do my stitching. Okay, so we're going to change quilts right here. Now, when I stitch on the edges, I usually start on the side away from where the opening is, so that I get some stitching in on this side in order to stabilize the quilt. So that I put this in, and again you can see, you'll have to understand or know your machine as to how high aloft you can put it and what you can do. I hold my fabric fairly taut so that when I sew I won't have too many wrinkles. I'm sewing right on the edge to give me a stitch that is right on the edge, and it's going to stabilize the front and the back, as well as the batting on the inside. This gives you an idea how close I'm sewing to the edge. I'm sewing right on the edge. Okay, now this is where I'm sewing the pocket that we turned it right together. I've got more pins in it, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, now this is just going to be sewing the rest of the way around. On this machine there are holes in the flat plate that I can make pretty much about 3/4 inch to a 2 inch or 1.5 inch seam. That'll be the second seam, and the main reason for putting my seams around is to anchor the batting, because like we talked before, the batting is bonded so it will hold, but when you wash, you want it, when it's going to be washed in a sewing machine, you want it, or in the washing machine, you want it to be really anchored at the edges so that the batting won't bunch up. So I'm going to put a second seam around this. And I'm going to do it just exactly like I did the one that was right on the edge. Only I'm going to do it about 3/4 to an inch in. When the fabric starts to bunch in the machine, I pull the pins out and go on to the next. And as you can see, this is making a double side seam, and on the back, on the front side, it comes up looking like this. So now we've done that 2 times, once on the edge and once on the inside, another 3/4 to an inch in. So we've got that one ready to go.
While you don't need a quilting frame to make this quilt, it does help. If you'd like free plans to make one yourself, visit the download section of AmericanKnitter.com.
This quilt has been completed and all the machine work is basically done on it. Or we could put another one, but we're going to anchor it to the frames. I've got my center mark here. Okay, so I'm going to staple it here, and then I'm going to staple it here. I'm going to put my clamps on, and I will put these on over the fabric, but I won't screw it so tight that it tears the fabric, because I don't want to ruin the fabric. Now I'm going to go to the other end, and I'm going to do exactly what I did here. So I've stapled it there, and then I'm going to anchor it here. And I'm going to pull this side so that all of this line is on the board. And I'm going to pull it as tautly as I can. Now, my mother used to use these kind of boards, and she used 2 chairs, like the old wooden chairs that you used to have in the chapels, and she would put the ends of the boards on one on each chair. Okay. And when I pull this last one taut, you see my quilt's going to be almost taut, so that it'll give me a good basis for tying. I'll staple these edges on both sides. I just put them in so that they'll hold. I usually put, when they're sewn on the edges like this, sometimes you have to put more to hold because it's thicker than. Now, as you can see, when I get finished stapling, this is pretty taut. It's almost like a trampoline. This is a template, and it's a 5-inch template, and I would normally put this on now, but because I have a definite pattern in my fabric, I'm going to tie without putting the template on. I would measure, before I decided, I would measure where these are, and this is about 12 inches, so I'm going to, from here to here is 12 inches, so I'm going to put one in each corner, then I'm going to put one at the 6-inch mark, and I'm going to do that in all of the squares of the pattern. And if I wanted to do an extra anchoring on them, then I would put the anchoring in the center of the hearts. Okay, I can measure, this is about 13 inches, so it's going to be 6.5 in the middle here, but I try to avoid their faces, and that's about it. I don't, if you put it in the middle and you don't put it on their face, I think it makes them look cuter. This, I cut with the scissors a small snippet off of the yarn package. And then I fold this, it's about 1 inch long, and I fold it in half, put it over the yarn like this, pitch them together at the end. And then there is a right and a wrong to the needles, and the deeper the groove is, that's the side you thread through, usually. And you put both of those little ends together, and you just pull it right through, and your needle's threaded. I'm going to start my ties here. My shoulders really hurt. First stitch, I'm going to put it around and pull, and then I'm going to put it under and over and pull. Okay? Now, in order to get a running stitch, I'll do it in the corners. Over and under. Under and over, and pull it out. I have been known to tie them on the other side if I think they need to look a little more dressy. I think they look dressier without the ties on the top, but that's not traditional. other band. So I'm going to do these again in the same way they were run as you may want to put this before you did the other one. Okay, now I'm making square knots. Now you can see that if I do all of these squares this way, I'm not going to have to put anything in the middle unless I just wanted another anchor. Now, generally speaking, if you're doing them quilts for humanitarian purposes, this is a 6-inch block tie. They want them in, they'll accept 5-inch, but they prefer 4-inch blocks. Now, I would go over these after I've finished and completely make the ties about that long, because children, babies, like to play with the ties. They put themselves to sleep sometimes just twisting the ties. So I don't want to change their habits or anything. So now I will just tie this entire quilt, and then I will take it off just like we did the other. We will put our fingers underneath the quilt, and the staples will come out easily without bothering or hurting the fabrics, either the top or the bottom. Now on this particular quilt, there are 3 places that I didn't get tied because I couldn't reach them without rolling the ends of the quilt. I have to take the staples out to as far as I'm going to roll. Now you see, in order to get those 3 ties in here, I need to roll this quilt approximately that far. Now, our boards are on the stands, so that this long board is on the stand, and the stands have an indentation so that it will hold. Then I have to, of course, loosen my C-clamps. Now you can tie this size quilt in your lap if you want to. Pull this way and push out so that you get it taut. Okay. I use this hand underneath so that when you put the stitch in, you know you've gone clear through the top fabric, the batting, and the bottom. Okay, my first stitch, I do a loop, tie a knot, and then do it the other way and tie a knot. Okay, I've gone down all 3 layers and brought the needle up 3 layers. So I took a full bite underneath. Okay, now this is my thread. I'm over the stitch and under this stitch. Then I pull it very tight, because if you don't pull your threads tight, they'll come undone. Then under and over, so that you're in the loop here. And then you pull this tight. So you've got a square knot. So every single one of these have a square knot. And if you forget which way you went, over or under, then put another loop on it. So that's the tie stitch that you use. Okay. All right. This is a template that I have anchored onto the frame and onto the quilt by stapling it in 4 corners. And I have tied this quilt. I've done it with a square knot, just in each one of these, and I've done it on a running stitch so that it just continues to come. And then I cut them, and then I will be able to disanchor this template. It'll pull up particularly if I put my fingers underneath the strips on the board, and then they come right up. Now you can pull the template clear off, and voila, you're done. Well, it takes me 5 hours pretty much to do a quilt from start to finish. I just slide my fingers underneath and it pulls them out. There it is. All done. All tied for the little girls.
Thanks for watching. We hope you liked it. If you did, please rate and comment. And if you want more videos like this, click subscribe.